All right. Well, given the time, we are 9:04. We've got quite a number of folks on. We will get going. So we'll call to order the February 11 meeting of the Steering Committee of Elected Officials. Let's see. First up on our agenda, uh, public comment. Do we have anybody signed up for public comment?
Rona, anybody for public comment? Mr. Chairman, we don't show anybody on our side.
Okay. Nobody signed up. Very good. Going once, going
I'm
twice.
sorry.
Oh,
Jim, I see now Jim Frank has raised his hand.
oh, very good. Is Jim able to turn on his audio or?
We'll get him here in just a second.
Great.
Can I unmute him? I can do that. Jim, go ahead, please.
Thank you. I actually didn't see a place to sign up to testify, so I apologize for that. Is the only opportunity to testify at the beginning of the meeting, or when the individual items come up for discussion, will you be able to testify on those individual items?
I think, Jim, from my perspective, if it was an in-person meeting, it'd be a little more functional to ask for that sort of input as we go. But just the virtual environment, I think, makes that a little harder. So we might need to limit it to the opening here, and then follow up with written comment afterwards.
Okay. There's an agenda item that talks about the adoption of the HAP methodology. I think it was maybe the fourth or fifth agenda item. So I'd like to comment on that. And then there's an item near the bottom about a change to the steering committee, the growth management policies. And I don't actually know what those changes in the policies that are being suggested are. So it's a little hard to comment on that item. But I would like to comment on the adoption of the HAP methodology. And on January 25th of 2025, the Board of County Commissioners adopted a resolution adopting methodology prime A, and included in that resolution was a table that provided the housing allocation using that methodology. And that housing allocation distributed housing units to each one of the jurisdictions. And so we had the understanding that those jurisdictions would be planning for the population that was allocated in that resolution. And that resolution came from a recommendation from the steering committee in the fall of 25. And the steering committee had a recommendation from PTAC in the fall of 25. So at the January steering committee meeting in 25, PTAC made what they called a recommendation to modify the inputs to method prime A. And they said that they were modifying the inputs based on the need to account for, one, group housing of some sort, group quarters, household size variation between jurisdictions, and they used a 6% vacancy factor. So in any event, this recommendation was made. The recommendation was never acted on by PTAC that we understand, and was never adopted by the Board of County Commissioners. Apparently, PTAC thought that if they made the recommendation, it was just going to be adopted. I don't really know. But the changes that were made in this recommendation were dramatic. They For example, in Airway Heights, they reduced the housing allocation to Airway Heights from 5,007 to 3,955, a reduction of 27%. They reduced the housing allocation to Spokane County within UGA by 34%. They reduced the allocation to Liberty Lake by 27%. They increased the allocation to Spokane County rural by 75%. So the allocation of housing in rural Spokane County went from 3,534 to 6,195. And the allocation to the city of Spokane went to 17,500, went to 22,359, to an increase of 27%. So these were not minor changes. These are very, very significant changes, and they have a dramatic impact on the growth management planning that's occurring, and the growth management plans that counties are developing, and they have a significant impact on what will be housing availability. The idea that we're going to increase 75% housing into rural Spokane County is totally contrary to virtually almost every policy that's been adopted by the steering committee. And it's putting housing in areas where there is no services. It's increasing driving times. It's putting an increased number of houses into the wildfire interface area, and potentially causing a significant loss of property or life. So the problem is that if you go back, this is an issue that was known by PTAC way before January of 25, January of 26, I'm sorry. There is a memo. I did a public records request to try to understand why this change was being made. And there's a memo from Kevin Freebot to the PTAC committee dated October 10th of 2024, a full year before PTAC made its recommendation, that raises these very same issues. These identical issues are discussed in that. And so PTAC, knowing all of this, made a recommendation in the fall of 25 to the board, and it was adopted. So I think that there is no one knows who's planning for what amounts of housing, and it's causing some significant problems. And if it's going to change, if the issue is going to change from the housing that's allocation is from jurisdiction is being changed, that needs to be done as part of some public process where there's opportunity for the public to comment. And I'd also like to finally point out that if you look at the last 10 years, and we underestimated the growth over the last 10 years. But there's interesting numbers there. Spokane County UGA ended up growing 13% faster than was projected. Spokane County rural grew 16% lower than what's projected. So the reality is that the growth in Spokane County rural outside of the urban growth boundary is diminishing. And with those facts in mind, it is very questionable that you would allocate 75% more housing to a rural area, which has no ability to accommodate that growth. And so if jurisdictions, there needs to be some clarity about what housing jurisdictions are planning for. And at this point, it seems to be very confused. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. And I don't know if, in the interest of being responsive, if perhaps during our discussion, we can kind of touch on some of what Jim just raised.
Yes,
Scott,
absolutely.
do we have anybody else who's raised their hands or indicated they would like to speak?
We do.
Okay.
Let's see. Darren Watkins is up next.
Okay. How many do we have with hands up or?
Looks like we have three.
Okay. All right. Darren, if you're up, go right ahead. Are you there, Darren?
Darren, you're still muted.
Does that work any better?
There we
Yes.
go. All right, we got you.
Thank you so much. We have testified before this committee about other alternative methods for looking at population growth that are dramatically greater than what is being stated by PTAC here. And it really gets down to the question of where do you want the county to go? At this point, I'd like to read you a document that we submitted that first off, there has been a 30 to 40 year underestimating of population growth by OFM. It's been documented. Patrick Jones has testified for it. It is and so for us to go back and use the same methodology is frivolous. And at the same time, there are other statewide accepted methods for looking at population growth that show a completely different number. And we have settled on those areas that say we need to grow about 110,000 homes by the year 2046. And the challenge for us in the real estate industry is that we are seeing more and more that shift going from Spokane to Kootenai County. They are anticipating growing 50,000 homes in the next 3 to 4 years. We're talking about trying to get 100,000 homes in the next 40. And the challenges from that become that they now have the impetus to pull all of the resources from Spokane County into Kootenai County at a dramatic level. It's already estimated that's somewhere in the neighborhood of $950 million lost every year to Kootenai County in lost tax revenues, in lost economic impacts. And we're just asking that before we make this decision, which we think would be disastrous, before we make these decisions to start landing on these lower numbers, we're calling on our county commissioners to hold a public hearing. Let's talk about what the best methodology is for determining where we're going. Because I can show you right now, we are headed for disaster. We have the lowest number of people wanting to stay in Spokane County in history. We're at a 47% people want to move, and the number one reason is housing availability. We need to talk about how to make those houses more expensive for workforce housing. And more critically, we need to understand what's really going on in our marketplace before we make these critical decisions. So we're just calling on the committee today to look at alternative methods for determining these. There are better methods that are out there. These aren't just our numbers and our market numbers. These are ones that are done by state agencies. And so when we start to jump into the final decision making, can we just use the best information available? Otherwise, we're going to continue to under project, which means under deliver properties, and we're going to continue down this downward spiral for our county. I mean, just look at the recent number for residential housing permits for the city of Spokane alone. They were anticipated to shoot between 1,000 and 1,200 homes. They delivered 146. And that's the direction we're headed in our biggest city and in our county. So before we start continuing down this path, let's take just one quick moment, hold one meeting, let's look at the best methodology available and make some determinations that you can make a vote for that is actually relying on good data, not just a select piece of data. Thank you.
Thank you, Darren. And I know obviously the commissioners have the final say and they'll have their own public hearing process on this. But in the meantime, Scott, what is our expected timeline for public participation in these UGA decisions?
Mr. Chairman, hang on, I'm trying to cut off some noise here. It's sort of anticipating that the first agenda item, the county EIS process, is underway. We are working to. We have completed what we call the no growth, or I'm sorry, the no alternative, and then alternative 1 and 2. Those maps are now with our consulting team for processing. We anticipate getting some findings back on those in March, and at that time we would hold a series of public events to talk about what those findings are and how we want to deal with them. So our anticipated horizon is about, I would say, 5 weeks from now for that information to be ready for public discussion.
Very good. And so maybe we can get some information out on how folks can participate in that here soon.
Absolutely. We'll have announcements on our web. We have an email notification list of well over 1,000 names, and we will be using regular mainstream media as well as social media to get that word out.
Very good. Who do we have up next?
Jay Reiner.
Okay. Jay, if you're on, go right ahead.
Hi, this is Jennifer Reiner. I'm with D.R. Horton, and I two things I want to definitely support what Frank and Darren both just brought up. I won't reiterate all of the things they said because they've said quite a bit of it very succinctly, and definitely us as a national home builder is definitely very concerned about what's going on, and Darren makes a good point that right now we're looking to go to Idaho as much as we can because it is so confusing. So um, complicated infrastructure issues, all of those kinds of things in Spokane, and some of these things that we're seeing as we're getting into the comp plan here is not making us feel any more comfortable with that. So again, I also encourage the commission to really take a better look at this, make sure we're looking at where infrastructure is and can be easily implemented rather than the very skewed way that things are looking at this point.
Okay. Hey, thank you very much for that. And if you've got any suggestions between now and the public hearings, please feel free to communicate those to me and others on this committee as well, so we can consider those and be thinking about those. And that goes to anybody on the line here.
Okay.
Scott, who do we have next?
Eric Lowe.
Okay, Eric, if you're up, if you're on, go ahead.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Thank you. I about 40 minutes ago sent everyone on the steering committee an email with some documents that my team has prepared, as well as uh, um, a map or a portion of the map that was published yesterday with the potential study areas for UGA expansion. And I just wanted to bring your attention, as I mentioned in the email, to my proposed development in the Latah Valley of Spokane and just south of the city of Spokane. We have 17 acres that are within the city of Spokane and another about 148 acres just outside the city of Spokane, zoned urban reserve. And I've been a regular presence at planning commission meetings trying to match or meet all of the standards that the planning department has been laying out in terms of what the county seems to want when it comes to future development and growth in the UGA. And I just want to sort of express my desire for our project to be included in any sort of study area. It's I'm not going to speak ill of any of the other applicants, but my proposal has tried to match or meet in all of those criteria in terms of transportation, capital facilities, um, mixed uses, et cetera, people-focused infrastructure in terms of pedestrian infrastructure and bike infrastructure. And so I just, would really like for the steering committee to take a look at that. And if that's something that you'd be interested in knowing more about, asking the planning department to continue that in the study process rather than, waiting until after that study has been done and they realize, oh, none of what we've proposed is really viable for the mixed uses that we want. I'm ready, willing, and able to move ahead on our project and want to act as a partner for all interested stakeholders. So I will leave it at that. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much, Eric. Appreciate that. Scott, if I'm looking at this correctly, we don't have anybody else with a hand up?
There's one new
Oh,
one popped up. It's only listed as iPhone.
okay. Do we have a name?
Yeah, hi. This is Isaiah Payne. So sorry, I couldn't find a spot to change the name in the format that we're in. So apologize for that. I'll be brief. You've heard some really great testimony already. Mr. Frank was able to cover a number of different points. I just want to add in. So with the Spokane Home Builders Association, representing over 750 businesses, builders, contractors, and associated construction industry companies as well. And as we're looking at this and looking at the need for more land to create economic development and to provide housing for companies that may be wanting to relocate, companies that are looking to grow, as well as just our friends and neighbors who would like the opportunity to purchase a home. It's really important that this group understand that we need more land available in order to do that, and we should be smart. We should be strategic. But if we go against what's now been cemented as a policy for over a year in the population allocation, it really creates some problems that even now we're saying another 5 weeks before we can even have a conversation about this. This policy was decided, as you heard, January of 2025, and to change it maybe 2 months from now, when we're so far into the process and we have this finish line right in front of us, we really think not only is it a problematic thing to change it, but from just a process standpoint, really waiting till the last minute to make such a drastic change is not something that we would recommend as good process. And so would encourage you to stick with the policy that's been passed by both this body and the commissioners over a year ago. So thanks so much for your time.
All right, Isaiah, thank you. And I think with that, we will move on from public comment. So thanks everybody for your participation. Scott, why don't I turn it over to you to get us into our first discussion item?
Certainly. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And we sort of hinted at that a few minutes ago, the county EIS process. I think we can be pretty brief at this point. Just to reiterate, we are in that study period now. We're looking at both the no action version, alternative one, which is essentially a more infill directed strategy, and alternative two, which is creative new zoning plus recognizing our historic market patterns of roughly 4.5 units an acre and planning for UGA expansion if it is warranted. That is in the process now. We're working with our team to work on transportation modeling, which is the first step for that. And we expect to have that back mid to late March and would be publishing the DEIS very likely in that first week in April. And so somewhere in that early stage, we'll also be re-engaging with PTAC, with the steering committee, and certainly with the public to take comment on what those findings are starting to show. So that's pretty much the summary of where we are and what the calendar is. Kind of hinting at the overall calendar, and probably the same for many of you. We will be working to have what I would call a working draft of the comprehensive plan update in July to August, having discussions on that, and our planning commission would be holding hearings in late October, November, with anticipated action by the Board of County Commissioners in December.
Okay, and that's everything on the EIS update?
Yes.
All right. Well, next up, we've got City of Spokane DEIS report. Is that Tyrrell?
Yes, she's right here. We'll move her over.
Very good.
Tyrrell, go ahead while we're trying to move you onto the panel, I think.
Yes. I have been moved into the panel, so thank you
There you
so
go.
much for the
Thanks, Tyrrell.
opportunity. I'm Tyrrell Black. I work for City Spokane Planning. We are have our draft environmental impact statement on the growth alternatives out right now for agency and public comment. That was released December 18th of 2025. It continues through February 18th of 2026. So we continue to invite comments on that. We've been doing some listening posts, listening sessions out in the community. We do have one more scheduled this Thursday from 4 to 6 at the South Hill Library. So if that works, please attend. We also have a lot of information online at planspokane.org. We have a recorded webinar about the draft environmental impact statement and also information about our draft chapters. So we do have several draft chapters available on the website. We are still working on our transportation, housing, and land use chapters. We anticipate those being through the Plan Commission subcommittee and out for review at the end of March. We also are working with Plan Commission. We are starting February 25th at their meeting and as a workshop, starting to discuss the preferred alternative map. So, and additionally, we have a study session on the 26th with City Council on that same topic. So invite anybody to comment on the draft environmental impact statement at this time. And also comments go to Plan Spokane at spokanecity.org. And if you can also sign up for our newsletter as well. So we hope we're getting information out to the public. And we have had pretty good engagement. So we think we're doing that. And we also anticipate that we will be meeting the timeline and have this to City Council later this year. Thank you.
Thanks, Tyrrell. Is there any questions for Tyrrell while we've got her up? Not seeing any. Okay, well, we will thank you, Tyrrell. Appreciate the update, and we will move on to our other cities and towns progress reports. Is there anybody prepared with an update or rearing to go?
Airway Heights. We will move them over.
Okay, great.
Rhoda? No, this is Heather. Yes. Sorry, we're trying to shift our usual thing here. Maybe we can just do it from here. Okay. Heather, if that's you, please go ahead.
Yes, it is. Thank you very much for the opportunity today to speak with the Steering Committee of Elected Officials. I'm Heather Troutman. I'm the Director of Building and Planning for the City of Airway Heights. Progress report on the development of our comprehensive plan is that we will be issuing a draft of the full plan beginning of March of this year. We have already been doing workshops with both our Planning Commission and our City Council since last year, as we've been receiving our targets for our housing population and updating each of our chapters. We are also working with focus groups on each of our chapters and citizen advisory groups as we develop our strategies with regards to climate resilience, greenhouse gas, housing, affordable housing, and so forth. We've also begun to do our agency consultations on the drafts as we move forward. We do have a website. Simply Google Airway Heights Comprehensive Plan, and you can see information about the drafts. We also have all of the drafts available in our Planning Commission packets for our document as we move forward. So we have also met with Spokane County planning staff several weeks ago to inform the outcome of our development of our land use as well as our housing study to help inform the county's draft EIS alternatives moving forward. So we believe that we're in step and consistent with the guidance that's been adopted by the Board of County Commissioners in January of 2025, as well as making sure that we're checking in with the county and other agencies as we move forward with our draft. Are there any questions with regards to our documents?
Any questions for Heather? I'm not seeing anybody.
Nothing
Thank you.
online.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Spokane Valley.
Yeah, please.
Go ahead,
Oh.
guys.
Go right ahead.
We're not hearing you from Spokane Valley.
Maybe they're trying to unmute.
Can you hear me? Can you hear us now?
We got you.
All right.
Yes.
Sorry, thank you. Technical difficulties. So I'm Steve Roberts with the City of Spokane Valley, and the planning manager here, and just a quick update from where we're at. We plan to have our full comp plan draft by end of June this year. We're in the process of doing scoping for EAS, and like everyone else, we fully anticipate to be done with our process by the end of the year. With that, we have a webpage with all the information on it that's available if anyone's interested in more details. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Any questions for Spokane Valley? Not seeing any. All right. Who do we have up next, Scott?
That would be us. And we've put this on, and Eric Lowe already had a comment about a particular project, but we did add this to the agenda item to offer a chance for the public to inform the steering committee of issues related to UGA growth. As we said, we will be working through that with our consulting team now, mostly in the form, or at least initially in the form of transportation modeling for both the infill impacts, which are notably in the North Metro UGA and the West Plains UGA, as well as potential expansion of UGA lands with a series of study areas that have been highlighted. And those the group has seen before, the number of parcels that met a certain number of criteria. We've taken those, drawn a roughly half-mile radius around them to look at a bigger study area with the intention of leveraging any public infrastructure or public capital facilities for greater use rather than a single parcel. So we've got a process. It is always slower than we'd like. It has slowed us down, but we think we've got a good defensible approach to going forward. The basic part of it, we will see here in like I said, in the next 5 weeks or so, we'll probably see some results, and then we'll be able to share more of that with the public itself. We will be posting the map that went to our consultants later today on our web for everybody's interpretation. And if anybody still has comments about that, we welcome them, certainly through you, Mr. Chairman, or to us directly at any time.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Scott. I misspoke earlier. I didn't realize we had set aside some public comment time. So I know we registered Eric's comments and a couple others kind of broadly around UGA issues. Right. But if there are additional comments, please feel free to raise your hand and offer those at this time.
Rona? Looks like Elizabeth Tellison is raising her hand.
Great. Go right ahead.
Can you hear me okay? All right, great. Thanks. This kind of goes back a little bit to the housing allocation and specifically the numbers as it relates to those being attributed to rural Spokane County outside of all of the UGAs, municipal and unincorporated. That's a pretty significant amount of housing over this next period. I know you guys heard from Jim on the limitation on the public services. I think this county really needs to take a long, hard look at what is truly being planned for the county's allocation of housing and the intent and expectation that that take place within an urban growth area. And understanding, you know, Scott's effort and your guys' effort to work on infill and zoning fixes to that. But it has to be a combination. I don't think anybody is supposing that it's going to be entirely one or the other. I do have concerns just looking around at the smaller areas that are being proposed on the truly developable nature of what is being contemplated at this point. And so I'm not sure if the consultant really isn't listening to what Scott says and what you guys and the Planning Commission are directing. But I hope that you all will be continuing to take a very hard look at what we're planning for. Because I don't think that the entirety of our growth is likely to or will happen in an infill capacity. So I think that the very modest efforts at expanding the UGA to me look underplanned. I know there are a lot of people who are prepared to develop, who are prepared to offer housing and land for housing that are in the urban reserve areas that are largely being told, no, we can't. So it does seem to me that the study is a little bit under planning for some expansion. I know we can't do it all, but I do hope that there will be a very concerted effort and careful look at including additional lands for that new housing that is being forecasted. So I've sent in a couple of other comments on behalf of clients and on behalf of myself. So I trust those are in the record and in front of you. So I won't belabor it anymore. Thank you for your time and your efforts.
Thank you very much. I'm not seeing any other hands, but if folks do have additional comment following this meeting, please do submit those in writing or communicate those to committee members here or planning staff. If no one's else is raising their hands, then Scott, why don't we move into the housing allocations confirmation?
Certainly. Give me 1 second to bring that up. What you should be seeing is what's called the HAPT tool that several of all of our commenters have referred to, at least indirectly. And I want to offer an explanation at the moment and also tie this into another agenda item because it's becoming very timely to do so. The original allocations that were referred to, the population allocations that we chose from OFM, which was the median line, were first used for these allocations to the communities. We were informed by Commerce as that process was going on that we were not to use population growth allocations. We were to use housing unit allocations, dwelling unit allocations. Planning staff, notably with the help of the city of Spokane, created a matrix of essentially persons per household that then were input to this HAPT model. Now and what that did is it changed these allocations. Some went up, some went down. Those were noted in the memo that was referred to earlier from January of 25. The allocations that moved around, and they made a significant difference for the county, for the city of Spokane, and to a lesser degree, some of the other communities. We have moved these forward in a sense because we were guided in this direction by Commerce to use these allocations from housing units rather than population. The challenge and conversations recently with with the city of Spokane Valley, Airway Heights, notably, we all have concerns about the methodology behind this chart, behind this matrix. That methodology is locked by Commerce. We were not allowed to see the formulas. We were not allowed to see the mechanism behind the box. And the rationale was the consulting team that developed it for Commerce claimed it was a proprietary element for them and they would not release it. So we're stuck with a model, and I'm sorry, that's a little pejorative. We're using a model that was in fact endorsed by Commerce, but we don't know how it works. And so the reason I said this is important for an upcoming agenda item is it's a big reason why the county is proposing to add a countywide planning policy for reconciliation. There, as you've heard this morning, there is widespread disagreement with these numbers, and yet this is the path that we would be using to make sure we're completing a compliant comprehensive plan under the Growth Management Act, because Commerce, of course, has to review our plans. So it is wise for us to use their methodology. However, as I believe Elizabeth noted and others, it involves a very significant infill component that does not historically, or is not historically reflected by development in Spokane County. And so if we use these numbers in our plan, we are likely to have a compliant plan, but we will probably need to reconcile these in some fashion in the short term after those plans are adopted. It's a messy situation. This is complicated because we've never used this kind of a system before, and especially because of these income bands. So we're using the tools that we have, and we would be ultimately asking the Board of County Commissioners to weigh in on this matrix and these allocations. But we're recognizing the fact that this is an imperfect system, and that's causing significant frustration for the professional planning staff, and I think for all of you as electeds as well, because some of this seems counterintuitive, but it is in fact the direction that the Growth Management Act is sharing with us. Happy to take any questions, but as others have noted, these numbers have not changed since January of 25. There was an initial thought from PTAC that we would do a first round of allocations, test those a little bit, and then maybe do a second round of allocations. That second round was abandoned as we moved into the housing versus population allocations. And so again, this is what we have moving forward, but it's also why we're anticipating, or we're recommending, creating a formal reconciliation process. So we've got a tool to adjust these after the fact that still keeps us in compliance with the Growth Management Act. And Mr. Chairman, I apologize for such a lengthy explanation, but happy to take any questions or comments.
Appreciate that, and looking for any hands that may go up. While we're waiting, I would ask, how would the reconciliation? Well, I guess one, are you asking this body to approve of moving forward with such a plan, and two, how exactly would that play out?
We've got an example that we have shared from Snohomish County. There are counties on the west side, a small handful that use it and have adopted this process. So it's a model that is contained within Commerce guidance for the Growth Management Act. It is typically used by those that are also using what's called the buildable lands analysis, which is a version of our land capacity analysis. Spokane County is far and away the largest county that does not participate or does not use the buildable lands approach. And it's something that we as planners are talking about for the next 5-year period. But that reconciliation process, we're showing you some examples, and what we will do is we will create a draft of what we would recommend that looks like for Spokane County and bring that through PTAC back to the steering committee at a future meeting. And then perhaps by July or September, it would be in a position to have a public hearing and perhaps a recommendation to the board.
Okay. Do we have any questions?
Jim Frank has his hand raised.
Oh, go ahead, Jim. Not hearing anything. Are you there?
He's
Sorry, I'm sorry.
There we go.
I wasn't sure if you muted me or I muted me. Sorry. Am my understanding, Scott, correctly, that the Board of County Commissioners is going to be asked to approve this allocation by resolution?
Yes, that is our current goal.
So there'll be a public hearing available for people to, and
Yes,
it'll be reviewed by the Board of County Commissioners and approved.
yes,
And
the public, I'm sorry.
And they have the ability to deny this recommendation, I'm assuming.
Yes, they do. The public hearing will be held through the Spokane County Planning Commission, which would take that and any steering committee recommendation to the board for consideration and action.
So, I mean, I'm not so much talking about Spokane County as I am the population allocation that's being provided to all the other jurisdictions. Is the Board of County Commissioners, they passed a resolution in January 21st of 25 approving this methodology A, and they had a table attached to it. Are they going to be asked to review the new table and approve it?
Yes, the table, there were two tables in that memo. One was the old allocation and one was supposed to be the new allocation. The new allocation table was incorrect. It should have been this version. And so we held it off thinking there might be a second round of consideration by PTAC and the steering committee. But once that second round was abandoned, we were going to bring this forward to correct the original resolution from January of 25.
I mean, the problem is that neither the Board of County Commissioners nor the public had any access to these numbers. And I, for one, have been following this process, for almost 2 years. And when I saw those numbers, I thought that they were acceptable. So I'm not making any comment. But I would have made comment if these numbers, if the altered, if the numbers, if you're saying that the resolution that was passed by the board there was a document in there that was incorrect, then it completely misleads the public. The public has no idea of that. Okay.
To just be clear, the resolution that the board adopted was for the methodology only. The sort of appended memo had what that methodology might look like at the time. So there's nothing invalid about the resolution itself. What changed is these numbers should have been there to compare with the population allocation versus the housing allocation. But having all of that, just to be clear for the audience, this methodology and others have been discussed in public through the steering committee. They have been posted on the county web, and we've taken comments on this for a year. So it has not been hidden from the public. But like many things, most of what we do can seem complicated and doesn't always generate a lot of comment.
With that in mind, Jim, do you have a final thought there?
There's the no one understands the changes that were made or why or how they were made. And when you look at the formula that was in the memo from Kevin Freebot, they're only modifying 3 factors. And those 3 factors, no one can understand how those could have had a 25% effect on the amount of housing that a jurisdiction is being asked to account for. So this is not a simple little thing. This is an enormous change. When you're changing the amount of housing that Spokane County is accommodating and reducing the amount in the inside the UGA by 34% and increasing the amount in rural Spokane County by 75%, it's a huge number. And that number, the public doesn't see the formula. Nobody understands the formula. Even PTAC members don't understand the formula. All the public has to go by is the numbers that they see. That's all they know. And these numbers change dramatically with no notice of any kind to the public.
Scott, if you have any final thought on that, and I did see Commissioner French had a hand up.
Uh, Mr. Chairman, our thoughts, I would represent again the recent conversation we had with our two biggest cities in Airway Heights in the county. We all share much of this frustration because as Jim pointed out, we don't know the formulas. We don't know how the allocation works, and so we're struggling with it ourselves. And we certainly would, welcome a refreshed look at it. The challenge, of course, is this is the methodology that Commerce has given us to stay in compliance with the Growth Management Act. So we stray from this at some risk of all of our plans being found out of compliance. That doesn't reduce our frustration, however.
Scott, Commissioner French?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. So part of my frustration is that to accept something from Commerce without understanding the methodology with which they got to their conclusion seems to be arbitrary, and arbitrary to the point where it could potentially damage the county. And so when you talk about this coming back to the Board of County Commissioners, do we have the opportunity to alter this with our own science and with our own numbers, or is the expectation that the Board of County Commissioners is going to rubber stamp what Commerce has dictated to us, which, quite frankly, from my standpoint, gives me an incredible amount of heartache, because part of the challenge we have with where we are at is because of Commerce. And so what's going to be our latitude when it comes to the board, and absent the formula and the calculations for how they got to their conclusion, why would we be put in a position to accept something that is clearly arbitrary on its face?
Let's see, Councilman Bauman.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner French and Scott, for bringing up these issues. Agencies relied on these numbers and all the targets were published as part of our work and what was available to the public. I mean, Spokane County, City of Spokane, Spokane Valley, and Airway Heights all together have all used these tables as recommended, and we've adopted this by method, by the county. And at that point, there was no confusion of the numbers, and so, one thing that I wanted to bring up is, so we agree with both Scott and Al on that, in that regard, but, now why a reconciliation process if most counties or communities are, we're hitting our housing targets? That's just some of the questions that have been brought up to me by, by our planning commission and by, Heather Troutman as well. And we discussed this at our city council meeting this last Monday. And these are, concerns that the council have.
Thank you for that. Is that Joel White with a hand up?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we got you.
Okay. I'm trying to recall all of our discussions to that point in time, but if I recall correctly, and please correct me if I'm wrong, we were given two choices, and I'm not a voting member, so I didn't have a vote. I would have voted opposite what was voted, but we had two options, and there was the population allocation, the housing allocation, and based. And so, but there was a lot of push from PTAC at that time to go with the current, what you're being proposed here, and what was apparently been voted on. But was that not, I know there's conversation about how much work it would take, the other option, and some things to create our own version, but there was a lot of confusion even amongst the steering committee at that time. At least that was my belief. But just making sure that we understand what was done and why it was done, and if I'm incorrect, please correct me.
Mr. Chairman, I could weigh in for
Please.
briefly on that. Joel and virtually everyone here is accurate in the sense of having some confusion. This is a brand new process. It was recently adopted by the legislature. Commerce turned it into a guidance for how to work on these things by allocation, by income bands. But the analogy of trying to fix the airplane while it's in flight, there were a lot of moving parts, and all of us were trying to guess at how to do this. And so we had some midstream guidance from Commerce that moved us from population to housing units, and that changed these allocations significantly. And as we've all noted, the major cities are all still, I would say, fair to say, not totally in agreement that these numbers represent the market that wants to build and live in Spokane. But I guess I'll leave it at that. Everyone was confused, and part of it was, I think, fairly honestly, because this was a brand new process and we were all trying to figure it out at the same time to provide you with a good recommendation that fits within the mandates of the Growth Management Act.
All right, thanks, Scott. I'm not seeing other hands, so do you want to take us into the occupancy goals?
Certainly. This is the requested potential county-wide planning policy amendment sponsored by Commissioner French and I believe also by our chairman to discuss the possibility of creating a housing ownership occupancy goal as a countywide planning policy. And I would defer to Commissioner French to introduce it.
Yeah, Commissioner?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chesney. So, as we plan for the next 20 years, and we're not just trying to meet a number. We want to build a community that we're all proud to live in, and that provides a range of amenities that make for good quality neighborhoods. And so as I look at that as a goal, one of the things that we all know as members of the development community is that home ownership helps to create healthier neighborhoods. And it's not only an issue of equity and fairness, but it's also a tool of good planning and good community building and stuff. And so what I was proposing and had the opportunity to share with our chair is creating an amendment to our countywide planning policies that says that as a goal, we want to provide housing to the level that 70% of, and that number can be massaged, but from my standpoint, looking at where we were at pre-COVID, 70% of our housing inventory being available for home ownership. It doesn't mean that the home has to be owned. It means that the home has to be available for home ownership. Provides an opportunity to not only build good neighborhoods, but also pushes us to say, we want to provide in Spokane County a pathway to the American dream, which is not only owning your own home, but being able to build generational wealth and building a stronger community. So what I would like to propose is that the steering committee of elected officials authorize the creation of a task force to come back with specific language to add to the countywide planning policies that would talk about our goal as a community is home ownership, and identify, based upon historical standards, what is that reasonable number to start targeting toward. And so home ownership can be single family homes, can be duplex, can be townhouses, can be condos. I mean, there's a number of different products that are available to us to provide a pathway to home ownership But if we don't set that as a target, then we'll never hit it. And so my request is that steering committee authorize a task force. This is something that can happen very quickly. Quite frankly, it could happen with a single meeting, come back to the steering committee with the language, steering committee take an action and incorporate it in the planning policies and provide guidance as we finish out our 20-year comp plan. That's my comments, Mr. Chair. If you want to add anything to it, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner French. Yeah, I couldn't agree more and would definitely entertain a motion to move forward with a task force as recommended by Commissioner French. I'll just share briefly that when he shared this idea with me, it occurred to me that we had really overlooked this pretty fundamental and important aspect of all of this planning. And, this was really one of, not the only, but one of the primary backbones of the BOCA policy in the city that I have been such a champion for, because it creates, and we haven't seen as much as it as we would like, admittedly, but it creates those opportunities for home ownership that generally has been much more out of reach. And so I think it's pretty important. There's numerous stats, as everybody knows, on why home ownership is so important, not just for the individuals who can, accumulate generational wealth, but also impacts to the community, schools, etc. Those are just kind of go on and on. And so I'll leave it at that for this moment. But if there is a motion to consider the idea of moving forward with the task force, I would entertain that now.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I would make that motion that we, as the steering committee of elected officials, we authorize the creation of a task force to come back with recommended policy language to amend our countywide planning policies to provide a target for home ownership and pathways to achieve that goal.
Thank you, Commissioner. Is there a second?
Mr. Chair, I'll second that.
Perfect. Thank you so very much.
Mr.
All right,
Chairman,
we've got a motion.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
who seconded that? Was that Councilmember Bowman?
It was.
Okay, thank you.
And I see Councilmember Klitsky with her hand up. Go ahead.
Sorry, I'd like to discuss the merits of the motion if we can.
Sure.
I think that's a laudable idea, but I don't understand why this should be a countywide planning policy. I think jurisdictions should be creating these kind of goals on their own. I don't know why we would have a uniform idea throughout the county. I think that doesn't make sense. I also think that a lot of the barriers to homeownership are because of state regulations. And so I don't see how putting that charge upon ourselves as multiple jurisdictions inside of a county helps with that issue. I'm all for meeting together and talking about those goals, but I don't think adopting it in a countywide planning policy moves the needle or makes sense, and it might put burden on jurisdictions that wouldn't be able to meet a kind of uniform goal like that. I also don't think we should be developing policies for our countywide planning policies in a rapid manner. I don't think this can get done quickly, nor should it. Because this will affect every jurisdiction in the county, and I don't know of any other counties who have done this.
Appreciate that feedback, Councilmember. I see Commissioner Waldron has her hand up, and then if there's any response from Commissioner French, we'll go back to you. Go ahead, Commissioner Waldron.
Yes, sorry, my camera's not working. Sorry about that. I think I need to restart my computer, but it's an interesting approach. I like Councilmember Klitsky. Would that be something that's more jurisdiction by jurisdiction? And then, I'm not opposed to forming a group to look into it. How does that impact the current planning process that we're under, like the growth management process where we're already using planning policies? Are you suggesting, Commissioner French, that this is for the future? Just trying to understand the process.
Commissioner French.
Yes, absolutely. This would be something that we would incorporate for the next 20 years. You know, I will remind, and I've made this comment before, when you look at the 2000, 2010, 2020 census data, you will see that communities of color, their percentage of home ownership has dropped over that 20 to 25-year period. I don't think that was a goal of the Growth Management Act, but it certainly is an outcome of it. And to turn that around, I think we've got to be able to make sure that we are providing housing opportunities for people to get into home ownership. I mean, and I've said this before, I think housing policies that don't provide a pathway goes back to, quite frankly, the 50s and 60s when the redlining was a policy that discouraged home ownership and actually discriminated against communities of color. We've got to be better than that. And we've got to be able to be in a position to where we're providing pathways for everybody to achieve home ownership. And yes, the county or the state dictates to counties on a regular basis what we can and cannot do. And to say that you're going to leave it up to the local jurisdictions to be able to regulate that, well, if that was the case, we wouldn't be in the situation we're in right now. And so, yes, I want to be able to say as a county, we want to provide access to home ownership for everybody in this community and not discriminate against communities of color or low income. It will force us to provide products that will meet those income levels. But again, that should be a goal. And it should be a goal for this county for the next 20 years. I don't think this is something that can wait 20 years until we fix it, not when we can fix it today.
I would just quickly say, in response to Councilmember Klitsky, that if Commissioner French had brought forward the policy and was asking us to adopt it today, I would absolutely agree. We should not do that. We should take some time and be thoughtful about it. But at this point, this is really about talking about how this could come together and what the benefits or attributes of that would be. There is no, the motion isn't that we actually adopt this. It's really that we just come together and talk about it. And I think that that's a good thing. And perhaps this policy could be beneficial at a countywide level. And so I'm very willing to support moving forward with the conversation of what could this look like. Doesn't mean at the end of the day that perhaps as the policy comes together that I or others agree. But I think it's worth the discussion because of how important. And I think Commissioner French makes good points about just the historic aspects of this, in particular in the city of Spokane, and why I think we need to be thinking pretty clearly about it. And perhaps it can help to communicate a message to the state as well that some of these restrictions, such as condos and whatnot, are definitely an obstacle to communities like ours being successful. So I'll leave it at that. If there's other hands, I will give it a moment to see if there's other comments, and if not, we will just take a vote. Not seeing any hands. Spokane Valley. Yes, please.
We're kind of having a little bit of a conversation here locally or amongst us here, just trying to figure out where we're at. We as a city have a strong belief that we need to try and help home ownership. But I think we're not quite at the level of thinking it should be a countywide policy, more of an individual city goal for home ownership. I'm just kind of thinking, and I know I'm new back on this board this year, but just kind of thinking of the timeline of when we adopt those countywide planning policies was kind of earlier in the process, and we're getting a little further down in the process and not really wanting to introduce potential for challenge if we don't meet a goal and how we could kind of incorporate that. So I guess there's some hesitancy, and Tim can talk for himself here too, but we're supportive and really want to help homeownership. And I think it's going to be a goal that our city probably does, but I'm not sure about doing it as a countywide policy.
And I would concur with Ben on that. I believe what he mentioned that I'm worried about if we don't obtain that goal, by our city or any other municipality, you can't attain that. And but I'm not against the task force itself, but I think we need to have that discussion on the task force and how we can reach a goal without someone being in violation of the goal they can't reach, whether it be Genie, us, Libby Lake, or whoever.
No, thank you for that feedback. Commissioner Kearns.
Yeah, I'm going to support this motion. I think I think I've probably heard each and every person on this call of elected officials at one time or another talking about the importance of home ownership, and now's the time where we can actually take a vote to really show that we support home ownership. I mean, when we look at the benefits, I mean the building of wealth, that's the generational wealth that's been mentioned. When you look at sort of the stabilization of your monthly payment with a mortgage as opposed to rent. I mean, I heard a lot of folks talking about how rents are out of control just a few weeks ago when when our largest jurisdiction was passing, an eviction prevention program. I mean, these are the types of policies today that we're discussing that's going to help combat those things. So I think this is very important. I completely agree with Councilmember Klitsky. Many of the difficulties when it comes to housing are directly related to state rules, regulations, mandates. Well, let's not just sit on our hands and do nothing and watch that happen. Let's put this task force together. Let's like Commissioner French said, it doesn't have to be 70%. Let's have a discussion at the task force level and see if there's another percentage that works better. But let's do something about this. Let's put our heads together and let's really where the rubber meets the road here, show that home ownership is a good thing for this community, and I think anything we can do to promote that is definitely the way to go.
Appreciate that, Commissioner. Council Member Dillon.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I think there's some writing on the wall here about what some desired outcomes are, of this creating this task force that I think I'm just inherently have a lot of nervousness about. We all support home ownership. I mean, at the city, we've allocated 1590 funds, now the Heart Fund to, home ownership program. We've been in ongoing conversations around the WASDOT surplus land for a Black home ownership program. So, I'm a little challenged with some of the comments that, we're just kind of sitting on our hands here, while we do look at different levers to pull, and right some of these wrongs, that everyone I think does recognize and have tried to outline. So, yeah.
No, thank you for that feedback, Councilmember. And again, my only response is, this is really a conversation, and it doesn't necessarily even mean that the policy is going to have to be some kind of a thumb on individual jurisdictions. There could be a lot of thoughtfulness into how this comes together. Some lofty goals and plans. I think we can all do a lot better on the home ownership front, whether it's market-based, subsidized, et cetera. And I just think it's worthy of a conversation. I would be regrettable to oppose the conversation at this point. And we can always just vote no on what comes together. But I just think we have to talk about how do we try to expand these opportunities. So that's the reason I'll support this. No guarantees on what the outcome is, but I think it's a good, thoughtful discussion to have. If there's no other hands going once, twice, three times, then we will move to a vote. Not quite sure the easiest way to do this virtually, but I guess we'll just call for, Commissioner Waldriff.
Sorry, every time I click on it, it has to unmute me. So I guess I'm wondering, I'd like to have a task force and dig into this. Usually when we do countywide planning policy changes and updates, we really put some time into that. And my concern is having enough time to do that while we're in the middle of our growth management update. So wondering if we could amend the motion to form the task force, but I don't want to slow down our growth management update process for this task force. We have a lot to do. The county has to put out its EIS and get feedback. We've got chapters to complete. So I'm all for forming the task force. I just don't want it to slow down our update process. So I'm just wondering if we can amend the motion somehow to put a reasonable time frame on it.
I would look to Scott for any feedback on timelines and how this could impact just current efforts. And then if Commissioner French has thoughts on the request to amend.
Mr. Chairman, from our side, I don't know. I would think, Commissioner French has outlined that it may be a very simple policy to state. I don't know that we'll have a direct impact now, but yet if the commissioners or if the steering committee and the task force were to put something together that all of you felt strongly about, we would take that into consideration in probably the reconciliation of our housing allocations that would likely take place after the plan is adopted, but it would provide direction for that reconciliation that would give us as planners some guidance from you.
So one more question for you, Scott. What would be the latest that a policy like this could be approved that would be beneficial or impactful?
Well, from the county's perspective, certainly no later than considering the draft environmental impact statement. We'd want to have this guidance would be helpful to produce a final EIS. And if we were going to incorporate it into housing goals and policies in our elements and our chapters, we'd certainly need that no later than midsummer from that perspective. That said, however, if the task force is created and they take longer to do that, presumably if we are adding a reconciliation factor to our countywide planning policies, we could use it after the fact.
Okay. Commissioner French, and then we'll go to Councilmember Klitsky.
Yeah, so it's interesting that there's so much concern about doing the right thing when we all talk about providing affordable housing and access to housing and stuff. We can always find an excuse to avoid doing the right thing. Just want to inform the rest of the steering committee that, what I did is I came to the steering committee and recommended that we take a look at creating this policy. The other route could have been the Board of County Commissioners can direct the steering committee to come forward with the countywide planning policy language and stuff. And so, I would really rather have this be from the steering committee as a positive action to allow us to at least have the conversation. And how a community chooses to achieve that goal is clearly up to the individual communities. We're not dictating a process for any community. We're just saying this should be our county goal, is affordable housing, is home ownership. And if it's not our goal, then there's a lot of things that we need to change about our policy and our language, because I do not want to be able to support something that is contradictory of itself, especially at the beginning of a process. So just share that, and thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner. Councilmember Klitsky, and then Commissioner Waldron.
Thanks. The notion that this is going to change the way we do our housing allocations gives me even more pause. I don't think that there is a way that we could write a goal for housing ownership without the intent of, or the unintended consequence, depending on how this is intended to work, of confining the amount of housing types and the changing the allocation of housing types that a jurisdiction can use. And I think that that's really not a great thing to try to do when we've already done most of our planning. This is kind of trying to go back and rehash things when we're way past the first draft. It's too late in the process to be changing that, and I think it's going to have unintended consequences, because what we really should be doing is going to the legislature to get them to allow us to have more housing types be different kinds of, or be ownership opportunities, because we're not going to be able to achieve both affordability and home ownership if we don't have more housing types that can be financed and owned by the occupants. So this isn't going to move the needle on any of those policies. It's not a great way to send a message to our legislators. And if it's changing the way we do our housing allocations, that's really unfair to a lot of jurisdictions. And I think we would really need to look deeper at how this would work before we would try to go through with something like that. I think we need to give the process that we've already done a chance to work. And then I'm happy to meet about this and maybe create a legislative agenda with this group and go to the legislature and lobby, or look at how it will affect our update in 5 years, our 5-year check-in. But it doesn't make sense for right now, and it could have unintended consequences.
Thank you, Council Member. Commissioner Waldron.
Yes, I just wanted to comment that there was a subgroup that spent 6 months, I think, developing the affordable housing countywide planning policies. I was the co-chair of that group with with the Medical Lake mayor. And I mean, we put a lot of time into creating policies that would support affordable housing across the county, and everyone gave input into that. I don't see this changing what we're doing right now. And to Councilmember Klitsky's point, we need to accommodate more people, and all of us are planning to do that. And I know at the county, I mean, we're going to do what we can to support more home ownership. And I would expect other communities would too. I guess when you get to the affordable housing piece, we did spend a lot of time developing our countywide policies on that. And hopefully everybody's going to be working towards that. I know there's different types of units and ADUs and condos and all these things that we need to keep working towards. At least I know at the county, we're doing that. So to say that we're not doing that, we're not supporting that is not true.
One of the things that's been a real big bother to me over this process has been the insinuation from Commerce, perhaps by the direction of legislature or just their own internal decision making, that essentially lower income, poorer people can only be housed in apartments. And that to me has been, it's kind of offensive, really. I'm not opposed to apartments. I think we need many apartments to accommodate folks who want and or need that option. But I just think there has been some odd insinuations that's almost a put down to a number of people. And so for that reason alone, I would like to see us have this conversation. I would be curious from Scott just to understand how this would play into some of the proposed allocation changes that might be considered in this process, and how this would kind of work into that or not as we move forward. Do you have any thoughts, Scott?
Yes, I would suggest that in our current work, those allocations are driven by this commerce tool. And unless we're able to, unlock that or collectively come up with another system that we can defend in front of the hearings board, it's not likely to have an impact right now. However, if the task force is created and it comes back with a recommendation to amend the housing part of our countywide planning policies, that's a goal that we could certainly use to as we're rewriting and adapting our codes. On the county side, we're looking at new coding language in what we're calling this neighborhood residential, that similar to the city, but perhaps more aggressive, potentially eliminating lot sizes. And the idea is, can we provide a regulatory system that will allow home builders to construct a shelter that is in fact affordable at at least 80% of area median income, if not 50%. And so we're sort of working on, I'm sorry, I didn't say sort of, we are working on trying to look at that happening. And so in a way, having a countywide planning policy that is a goal toward that provides some direction for that. I think it would be helpful.
Thank you very much, Scott. I've got one more hand, and then we won't belabor this too much longer. We'll go to a vote, and then we will see what happens there. Commissioner Kearns.
Yeah, thank you. I'm a little surprised I'm having to speak on this again. I really don't think this is a controversial topic at all. And I just our previous topic here was a discussion about reallocating populations, and to say that we have enough time to do that, but we don't have enough time to have a conversation about home ownership is just it's a little bewildering to me. But again, this is just to have a conversation. Let's stand up a working group. We will let them meet. We'll appoint folks that have the ability or the time in their schedule to be on that committee and bring us back a proposal if they think there's a proposal warranted to come back to us. This isn't putting it into the countywide policies. It's not guaranteeing that it gets there. It's standing up a subcommittee. Let's see if they can find something that works and bring it back to us. I don't think that's too much to ask for. Again, home ownership, it's difficult to find an argument against home ownership. So, again, I'm going to vote yes on this because I think this is important for the entire community.
No, I appreciate that. We'll go to a vote, and if it does pass, my request would be to Scott and or Commissioner French that we try to make sure we have a bit of a cross section on that task force. I don't think we need to amend the motion per se on that, but ensuring that we have some diversity of views, I think, would be important. So, okay, well, all of those in favor of the motion to create the task force to consider.
Mr. Chair,
yes.
Can I ask staff how many voting members are on the call? And if I can request a roll call vote, I think that's just going to be the best and most easy way to tally this up.
That is fair. I'm not sure how this will go.
8, 9, 10, 11. We certainly have a quorum, Mr. Chairman. It looks like we have at least 11 voting members participating on the call.
Okay. If for a roll call, could you just read through, Scott, and I'll have you
I can. We'll go from the top to the bottom. Mr. Cathcart.
Aye.
Mr. Hattenberg.
Aye.
Mr. Bowman.
Aye.
Mr. Dillon.
No.
Mr. French.
Aye.
Ms. Hahn.
Aye.
Mr. Kearns.
Aye.
Ms. Klitsky.
No for now.
Ms. Waldruff.
Aye.
Mr. Wick.
Aye.
Is that the entire roll call?
Megan Heller from the Kalispel tribe is trying to come over from the. Oh, say she declined. So we would count that as just an absence. So there are 8 ayes, 2 noes.
All right. Thank you very much. Thanks everybody for that. We will move on, but please connect with Scott and or Al if you'd like to participate. And again, I do think a cross section would make this just a better process. So leave it there. Scott, do you have updates for us on legislative items? Is that what's next?
No, we put this on here really to allow you all to share any concerns you may be tracking. I'm sure the city planning group is tracking things. The county planners through WASAC, our planning group is tracking them. On the general GMA stuff, the American Planning Association chapter is tracking all sorts of things. As we all know, our legislature seems to consider itself the state planning commission these days, and we're reacting to some things that are very much traditionally left at the local level. but we're we're doing the best we can.
Well, with that, is there anything that anybody would like to speak to legislatively as an issue to raise, or something maybe positive that you're seeing? Not seeing any hands. Anybody from PTAC or other staff? Not seeing any there. Okay. Well, with that, let's we will move into our minutes. Are there any corrections to the amendment or to the minutes? Seeing no hands, can I get a motion to adopt the December 10, 2025 minutes for the steering committee?
Move to adopt the December 10th, 2025 minutes. Tim Hattenberg.
Thank you, council member.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Abstaining? Okay, that.
Mr. Chairman, who
Yes.
was the seconding? Who made the second?
Councilmember Klitsky.
Thank you.
With that, if there is nothing for the good of the order and seeing no hands there, our next meetings as currently scheduled and as always subject to perhaps some change, March 18, May 20, June 17, and July 15. So more to come on formalizing those, but if nothing else, we will adjourn this meeting. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.